and welcome to the Creatives in Focus podcast, the podcast where we discuss the journey to excellence and creating for impact. I am Victoria Bola Okerinde, your podcast host. Our next guest on the Creatives in Focus podcast is Deena Tissera. Deena is a community councillor, vice-chairperson of the George Street Community Council in Aberdeen, Scotland. Deena is a PhD student and she sits on several strategic boards. She's an active member within the political and public health sphere, pushing for change in these industries. I must say, Deena is an incredibly hardworking lady. I've known her for a few years. We both went to the same university, and it was indeed a pleasure meeting and connecting with her last weekend at the London WHO Simulation Conference. And Deena has worked with the NHS and other public health organizations. Deena's journey is extremely inspiring, from representing Sri Lanka in the Miss World pageant in 2015, finding her voice, finding her strength to impact change in her community and wider. On this episode, we discuss Deena's passion to use her voice and her platform to stand for others. We talk about maximizing your opportunities, and we discuss the highs and lows of BAME women in politics. Deena highlights and stresses the need for more representation within the political field. We even touch on Brexit. I know, Brexit. Deena gives us some insight into the possible impact that Brexit will have on young people and creative startups. Indeed, in these times, creativity should thrive, and we must ensure that we are problem solvers, addressing gaps and creating for impact. Introducing Deena Tissera. Hi, Deena. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me on the Creatives in Focus podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I was waiting for this. Looking forward to today.
You are welcome. You are welcome. It was a pleasure to actually connect with you at the London WHO simulation this weekend.
Definitely. And I think you did a really good job as the Lancet representative. Your interview was fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm trying. I'm learning and I'm trying. I'm really glad to actually introduce a fellow Aberdonian on the podcast. And yeah, I mean, I've known you for a few years, but your inbuilt passion to impact your community and wider is really, really inspirational. And you're a community councillor, a PhD student at the University of Aberdeen, and you sit on several strategic boards in Scotland and wider. And I talk about this a little bit more in this interview, but can you tell us a little bit about your journey? It certainly has been an interesting journey. Can you share with the audience, the listeners, a little bit about your journey so far?
Oh, of course. So I was born in Sri Lanka. I'm originally Sri Lankan. I went to school in Sri Lanka and I moved to Scotland for my higher education. I did my undergraduate degree at RGU. That's where we met. And I went on to do my master's degree at the University of Aberdeen. And after that, I went on to do, I'm currently doing my PhD in public health. So I worked so many years in public health for organizations like the NHS, the Politics of Health Group, the Training and Research Support Center. I've also been quite involved with politics. Started off with student politics and now I'm in national politics. Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey and so I'm happy to talk more about it throughout our podcast.
Yeah, certainly. And you're definitely passionate about impacting the lives of people around you. And I just want to ask, what ignited your passion for social change?
Yeah, so being born in Sri Lanka, it's at that time it was a third world country. Now it's a second world developing country. It's classified as second world. But being born into a third world, it's inevitable that your nature around you is poverty, and you see a lot of social injustice and inequalities. My father was a doctor, and he was a disabled man who was born into a family, in a vicious cycle of poverty. And he was the only person who went to university and educated himself. And he managed to take all of his entire family out of poverty. And he went on to set up a hospital in our community. And his work was mostly, targeting people in lower socioeconomical backgrounds and targeting refugees. So we've done a lot of work in our communities, humanitarian work, and helping people not just with health, but also with education and different other issues. It was my father who inspired me to get involved with a lot of social issues. We've gone to the war zone. We've helped a lot of refugees in the war zone. We've treated the war wounded. We've done humanitarian missions where people were affected by the tsunami, where cities were washed out in Sri Lanka. Being able to see these kind of issues have made me want to dedicate my life into doing so much of things that we have the opportunity to do so. And I feel like it's a blessing. Being able to change people's life is a blessing, and the feeling that you get after that change is created in the society, that's what I'm like very much addicted to. I always tell people, like, I don't do things for credit. I do things for real change in the society. I'm driven by that.
Incredible. From what you said, you certainly have a lot of passion and a lot of influence from your family growing up in Sri Lanka, and also even in Scotland, in Aberdeen. You have been very, very involved, even from your university days at RGU. I mean, you were very involved in student union. I mean, I remember you offering help while I was studying biomed. And I mean, if you can tell us a little bit about some of the work you did while you were studying at RGA.
So just before I came to Scotland, I was in a beauty pageant. I was in Miss Sri Lanka, Miss World, the pageant, and I came in the top 5 runners-up. So that gave me sort of like a platform to be able to do work which I was passionate about. And these pageants are centered on a lot of social work and issues with health and women's rights and feminism. So that was also a platform, and that's what's kind of motivated me to do more. So by being in the pageant, it really gave me an opportunity to build confidence in myself, to be able to stand up and speak something and where people would listen to me. Having that experience and coming to Scotland, Scotland being a different country from Sri Lanka, obviously a first world English-speaking country, I really wanted to create change within the kind of communities that were facing the same kind of issues as I was. I was an international student, and when I was in university, my first year, just before I remember going into an anatomy exam, I got a call from my mom saying that my dad's extremely ill. He was just paralyzed. He had a stroke and he's paralyzed. So that was one of the toughest moments in my life. I tried to walk into my exam and I was very anxious. I couldn't perform. And I just told the invigilator, I just got this call 10 minutes before this exam. I really can't breathe. I don't think I can do this exam. So I really need to go out of here. And I need to really, talk to my family right now. And the invigilator was really nice. He actually helped me book my ticket to Sri Lanka, like on the same day. He just came out of the exam. Yeah, he was really supportive. And I went to Sri Lanka, and I missed 4 exams because that's the time my father passed away. I had to do, help my family out with the funeral. It was an extremely tough time for me because he passed away with cancer. It was too late when we found out. Yeah, he had bowel cancer. It was extremely late when we found out that he had the cancer. So it was a very tough moment for me. And I had to come back to university after that. 2 weeks after the funeral, I had told the university that I'm looking forward to carry my modules to the next year, because obviously I missed these exams because of my father's funeral. And the university said I couldn't do that because that's never done before, and I'm supposed to pass all the exams. You can carry just 2 modules into the next year. And I had to fight my case, and the university was very compassionate about my scenario, and they allowed me to do 2 exams within that week and carry the rest into the following year. Then came the opportunity for me to run as vice president, and I took my story as what motivated me to help a lot of students in similar kind of issues. International students face a lot of different kind of issues compared to local students. It's very difficult it's very extremely difficult to stay far away from your family and still perform in your exams, to study hard and also the cultural shock that most students have to face, adjusting into a different culture, the weather, then the scrutiny of immigration, and also starting your undergraduate level studies in a completely different education system. So there's a lot of adaptation issues there, and I was advocating for a lot of students that was facing a lot of different kinds of issues, and then went on to have campaigns against unfair immigration laws, some of which was successful. So that's the kind of work I did as the student union vice president.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, it's incredible, an incredible story of you kind of looking within yourself at a difficult time and using that, finding the strength within you to make sure that you help others, you impact people around you within your community, within the university, the students, and using your story, a story that some may find, very, very relatable as a student coming into Aberdeen from a different country and assimilating, and it's really, really incredible. And I think and that has kind of set the pace for you for everything that you have achieved and all the roles you're currently in at the moment. And you are a community councillor
Yes.
under the Labour Party. So why did you decide to take this role?
So after doing 3 to 4 years of engaging in 3 to 4 years of student politics, the issues that were coming to me was becoming more local issues. Everything was not about international students. For instance, NHS, quality of education, health issues, racism, discrimination. These are all local issues and national-wide issues. So, it was time for me to kind of take that transfer, next step into going into national politics, where my initial encouragement and motivation came when my first campaign was successful. The campaign I had against the British government for trying to impose a £6,000 bond on Tier 4 visas. So they revoked that policy that was going to be implemented, and that is when I thought, wow, change can actually be implemented. That was a campaign that we did. It was more like a digital campaign we did, and support grew throughout the UK for that campaign, and it was implemented. And that is what motivated me. That single change motivated me in a way that, whatever the issue is, it can happen. And I was always trying to compare the UK and Sri Lanka. For instance, in Sri Lanka, it's quite difficult to create any sort of change with a campaign, especially a digital campaign. It's very difficult to inform a politician of what is needed in the society to be changed. I was quite impressed that in the United Kingdom that these kind of issues can be addressed by a campaign, and the campaigns are actually, they have some weight in them. So I went on to do local campaigns, and I started off as being in the committee for the Labour Students Association at the University of Aberdeen, and from there went on to become the vice chair of my constituency for the Labour Party, where I was hosting local campaigns and dealing with a lot of issues that was happening in the local society, as well as obviously campaigning for general elections and all the elections that we've had in the last couple of years. And then it came to a level where I could take a step further, so I went on to becoming a community councillor, where I'm dealing with more local issues in my local area. For me, it's very important that I had taken this role. I live on George Street, which is the hub of diversity in Aberdeen. I'm the only person of diversity throughout the entire history of our community council. And the issues that I bring into the community council represents that. The issues that I bring into the community council are issues that are never been spoken about. That is my main motivation of going for community council. I've been a community councillor for a year now, and the term is 3 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes forward.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to all the awesome things that you will do as community council, as a fellow Aberdonian,
Yes.
living outside of Aberdeen. But yeah, I think what is really incredible is what you mentioned about your digital campaign, just showing how young people, in fact, anyone can actually influence change. It's easier nowadays because we have access to the internet, we have access to the tools
Definitely.
that we can use our voice to shine a light on issues that affect us. And I think that's really incredible, you taking that step and actually using your voice and, moving from your work within the university and moving it into the local community and wider. And you mentioned being one of the few people who are women of color
Yeah.
in politics
Yeah.
in Aberdeen. And I just wanted to touch on that. What challenges have you faced as a woman of color?
I wish it's one of the few was correct, but it's wrong. I'm the only, so.
You're the only, apologies, you are the only person of color in that role.
Yeah.
Well, what challenges have you faced? I mean, being the only person, I'm sure you face quite a few challenges.
Yeah, I think politics, the challenges of politics for BAME. No, let's forget about BAME. Black and minority. Let's forget about that first. Let's speak about being a woman itself. It's incredibly difficult to come into politics as a female, and then the other intersectional issue of being colored and BAME. So, I think the biggest challenge is opportunity, and it is extremely underrepresented. And did you know that the Scottish Parliament have never ever elected a BAME female yet in the history?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done there. In the last Scottish Labour Women's Conference, I put forward a motion, and the motion passed. A motion to make sure 50% of target seats are given to women. Target seats are basically very winnable seats. And so I wanted 50% of target seats given to female, and within that 50% diversity of BAME, disabilities, LGBTQ, all to be represented. So the motion passed, and this year there are more seats where they've added all women's shortlisting too, so only a woman can stand in these seats. So I was very proud that the motion passed, but again, there needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done around that. Seats that are guaranteed win, those seats need to be given to women as well. That's how we are going to get women in. There's no point of being selected if you can't win an election. So there needs to be a lot more work done in that area. Like I said, being BAME and a female is very extremely difficult in politics. I've never had males being intimidated with me in my other career. In my other careers, so for instance, in public health or any other work I do. But when it comes to politics is when I see that men are more intimidated with women. So issues around that. Another issue is that women have to kind of like elbow each other out to get that little opportunity that they have.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a tough one.
You're right. I mean, not only in politics, I mean, in other fields as well, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, and that's down to the amount of opportunity you have. And that's why it is. We need to fight each other to be there. And most of the time, women are being given the post of, to check the diversity box. And they're highly qualified, but they should be recognized for their qualification as well. And lately, this is interesting, I've had men in the political sector telling me, it's easy for you now. There's positive discrimination happening, so you get an opportunity. Yes. So, but my answer to him is like, that positive discrimination is not the same privileges as a white man.
Exactly. I mean, wow, amazing. I definitely couldn't say it any better. And speaking on women in politics, are there any women in politics that inspire you? Do you have any mentors that are women?
So I did the Joe Cox Women in Leadership program. It is a very specialized high-level leadership program for females who will take up leadership in politics in the future. So I was able to be mentored under the Labour leader, Kezia Dugdale, the former Labour leader. It was very interesting. All of them. I also did go to a meeting where it was a Women's Day something and some sort of like engagement in the Parliament where we had Nicola Sturgeon, who's the First Minister of Scotland, Kezia Dugdale, the leader of the Labour Party, Ruth Davidson, the leader of the Scottish Conservative Party. So all three, the most three powerful women in Scotland in politics were women. And they all said one thing: there's going to be a lot of people trying to give you advice. So always go with your gut instinct.
Yeah.
and be smart enough to prepare yourself and know all the information, and to go with the gut instinct. And they also said one more thing: the mom will always look at you in the TV talking about something incredible and be like, oh, but you were wearing lipstick, why aren't you wearing lipstick?
Wow.
Completely
Wow.
completely ignoring what you're saying. And
Mm,
Nicola Sturgeon and most some of these women don't have children, so
mm,
there's a lot of criticism coming their way, regardless of what they wear, if they have
mm,
children or not, and all of these
mm,
kind of things. So I would say that I won't idolize one person. There are a lot of things that I've learned little elements from a lot of leaders in the political field, and I've learned elements from people outside the political field as well.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Incredible. That is a very interesting point you mentioned about presentation as a woman in places of power. Yeah, I think that's important as well. But I mean, what you're saying, what you have to offer is more important.
Exactly.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. And I must say, I do love your power suits. Moving on from that, I mean, over the weekend, you were definitely, dressed to kill. But
Thank you.
um, but speaking about politics and speaking about groups within politics, some young people have lost hope in politics,
Yes.
unfortunately, especially following Brexit and everything that's been happening with it. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any encouraging words for young people?
I don't think young people have lost their hope per se in politics, but I think their interest is more kind of attracted into this issue, because Brexit it's a massive issue that is going to affect young people in the future. They affect their ability to travel, work, study,
Yes.
and live in Europe, and that is such a privilege.
Mm.
People who don't have such border movement privileges know that is such a big privilege to have.
Mm.
So I think that has obviously encouraged a lot of young people to come forward. And of course, in Britain, we have not just British people, but British and European people who are British and European, who have parents or grandparents who's European. So they are being affected as well, because they have both the citizenships.
Yes.
And what are they going to do about it? They have properties in Europe, or they spend time with their families in Europe and they come back. So what's going to happen to all of them? So that's affecting a lot of people. But honestly, to be fair, the Brexit issue has been very frustrating to everyone, and the politics around it, it's actually tiring right now. People have been discussing this for years now. It was supposed to happen within a year. And definitely for people in Scotland, it's even more frustrating, because Scotland wanted to remain in Europe. At the same time, we are a democracy. So I personally believe, what I believe is that there should be a people's vote. So if there's a deal that's proposed, they need to go back into the people and ask what they really want again. At the end of the day, that is what democracy is. So, I mean, if Parliament can't make a decision, that's what they should do, come back to the people and say that. And I'm extremely confident that there'll be a lot of young people participating in that election.
I mean, what are the key steps for these young people to actually be involved? So you're a community councillor. What key steps do you think a young person who is interested in politics should follow?
I think number one thing is this is what I'm doing currently as well. We're doing a register to vote campaign. You need to register to vote. Your vote is extremely important. There is no vote that is useless. Every vote counts. So that is the most important thing. If you care about Brexit, if you care about the country, you need to register to vote first. And it starts from there. And then you encourage other people to register to vote. And then if you like to get involved in community-led campaigns, whatever party that maybe, I'm from the Labour Party, so I'd encourage people to join the Labour Party. But but whatever political ideology that you may have and whatever party that you may support, you can be a member of that party and then join on with their campaigns.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So just touching on Brexit again, the podcast is called Creatives in Focus, and a number of the guests that we speak to are business owners, startups. I mean, what impact will Brexit have on businesses and startups?
I think there'll be a big impact on it. Aberdeen is the city having the biggest impact from Brexit. Businesses especially is going to have a massive issue. I mean, as you can see, there are a lot of businesses already moving back to Europe. The level of consumers are going to be lower. There's going to be a massive impact on the fishing industry. There's going to be a massive impact on people who are importing goods into the country from Europe. I mean, Europe is so close. The logistics are so much easier. It's cheaper. All things are going to get a lot more expensive. Let's talk about food, for instance. Food poverty is going to be a massive issue in Britain after Brexit. We import most of our food from Europe, including tomatoes, bananas, you name it. So that's going to be a massive issue. The prices of food is going to go up. Prices of logistics are going to go up. So that is going to make, even for a business startup, people starting business, where everything is going to be in a higher price where it should be before. And if you're looking at the pound as well, the British pound has been, it's been fluctuating quite a bit these days. But if there's a no-deal Brexit, it's going to be disastrous. But I also say this, I'm a Remainer, but I also say that people become creative in uncertain times. That's where creativity comes. So there's always, you can make the best of any situation. So I think in the case that Brexit does happen, business owners should look into any gaps in the market and take advantage of that.
Fantastic advice. Look into the gaps in the market and take advantage of it. Yeah,
exactly.
And I'm speaking to so many people. Something that's really key as creatives, as a business owner, as anyone who wants to create for impact, is actually looking at a gap and seeing how can you influence change through that. And speaking about the whole economic consequences of Brexit, something possibly not caused by Brexit, but was the oil crash in Aberdeen,
yes.
And where we saw quite a number of people lose their jobs, and it's still impacting the Aberdeen city. And you've actually gone on to study more on this with your PhD at the moment. Can you please tell us a little bit about this topic?
So my PhD is on acute redundancy and the implications on health, whether it's mental health, physical health, and health behavior. So Aberdeen is an interesting case study because oil and gas industry was extremely highly paid. So the average starting salary was around 65,000 going upwards. So we saw a lot of young people, including friends in my university as well, who were just starting to do their undergraduate degree, but had some contacts in the oil industry. They just left their degree and they just went on to get the job in the oil industry because they were like, oh, even if I did finish my degree here, I wouldn't be getting a 65K job. So they went on to taking that job on. And of course, with such a highly paid job comes the luxurious lifestyle, like tying yourself on an expensive mortgage, getting yourself a financed Range Rover, expensive trips, and also the culture of not saving money for a rainy day. That was a big problem. That is an issue that is common in the younger population. In the younger population, you can see a lot of the suicide rate was going up. Mental health issues were high. People couldn't pay their mortgages off because you don't have a job. You still have to pay your council tax. And then, the property market went minus 20% below the average price. They got negative equity on their mortgages. So it's such a hard time for them. And after having earned a 65K job, you're going back to looking at the job market, and the jobs available for you are like 25K.
25K.
And you've not even completed your degree. So a lot of issues around that within the young people. But in the older people in their 40s, they have more physical health issues like strokes and heart disease were quite common because they're used to the stress of having dependents. Their children went to good schools, and the wife left her job because the husband was making enough money. So a lot of things like that, few properties, not just one property. So there were so many issues around that. I was working on a project on food poverty at Seafine, which is a food bank in Aberdeen, a very famous food bank in Aberdeen. So when I was there was a gentleman who came in his Porsche Cayenne and to take some bags of food from the food bank, and he was just saying that the car's on finance. This is the last day he gets to drive it. This is how bad life is. He has to come to the food bank for food. So economic crash has been really bad for Aberdeen. The job market is really bad. So we also have people who work for the NHS, one of their husband obviously lost their job in the oil and gas business, and he wants to move to another city because that's where he would get a job, because the job market in Aberdeen is quite bad. So his wife would move from her job from the NHS because she can obviously transfer to another area, another NHS somewhere else. So there's a lot of skills that are leaving Aberdeen. About 20% of the people who work in the oil sector have moved away. Yeah, so it's really not economically, it's not a very good place to be. But I think the council is trying their best to invest in other areas. We've got the new PNJ, which is a huge stadium that's opened. That recently opened, so that we can attract more people coming in. We had the music hall art gallery that opened last week. Yeah, so hopefully they are investing, and the universities as well. They're investing in the universities because education is not a sector that would die.
I mean, it's something that we can learn from, not just only for Aberdonians, but in other cities as well. And even as we move into an unsteady political, or we are in an unsteady political climate, is actually sort of rethinking about the way we spend money, how we save, and also the skills that we have. How do we make sure that we are actually gaining skills and improving on those skills for us to be prepared for anything?
Definitely. And I think the Labour Party is doing quite a lot of work around that. We're trying to work towards a green industrial revolution, towards making renewable energy. And that will benefit a lot from the redundant oil and gas workers, because those skills can be transferred into other energy sectors. So they're promising about 50,000 jobs in that trade. So that will be fantastic. So yeah, and Aberdeen is such a good place for renewables as well.
Okay, so moving on to talking about a little bit more about yourself. So you must have a super busy schedule. I mean, you do so much. How do you stay organized? How do you make sure your well-being is top notch?
See, a lot of people ask me this, right? They ask me, how can you do all of these things?
Yeah.
But the truth is, right, being a colored woman, opportunities don't come so easily. So I try to, so when there is something I see, oh my God, I can get my hands on this and this and this, I try to do it. My biggest priority, I feel, is my weekends. I want it to be free, at least one day to be free. And my health, I prioritize it a lot. So going to gym is quite important to me. I do have a good organizing schedule. I have some phone apps that I use to be organized, to make sure I'm on top of all of the meetings I have and things I have to do. I think that is really important. I also have a lot of people who are helping me around. I have I mean, whatever the role it is, it's really important not to take everything onto your hands, when you can actually like set tasks to other people, and you can, it becomes, your outcome is more effective as well when a whole team helps you out. So yeah, I try to see efficient ways of getting things done. And it's important to me to meet friends and not talk about politics or anything at all, at least once a week.
Take your mind off it. It can definitely bring about some heated conversations, I'm sure. So oh my. Oh, that is great. And that's great to hear that you are definitely trying to find a balance, doing so much, because you're giving so much of yourself to others. Is important to also value your time and your well-being as well.
Another thing for me is that all of the work I do with politics, and even my PhD, I don't look at it as work. I look at it as a hobby and my passion. So it is encouraging me to do more work. I love it. I don't get tired of it. And I think that's because most of the work I do, I used to do, was volunteering. I love it.
That's great. Thank you so much. And yeah, just moving on from that, I mean, you mentioned taking every opportunity and making the most of it. And I think to be able to do that, you have to be a driven and an ambitious individual. And just advice for listeners, what advice would you give to a young individual who fears that they are more ambitious than their peers?
See, having been in a beauty pageant before, we were all competing for one thing. What I learned was to focus on your own self instead of focusing on what other people might think about you, and focus on your own weaknesses recognize them, make sure you learn the skills to improve them, have set goals and objectives and keep working towards them. And I really need to change the idea that a woman being ambitious is bad. A woman being ambitious is good. And if you can, try and motivate people around you. Try and inspire, just encourage people. Sometimes just a small compliment can go far for people, So just helping people out. I mean, if you know something, share your knowledge with someone who's around you and with your peers. So I that's what I feel. Just focus on yourself and try and motivate people around you.
Words of wisdom, honestly. And as we are moving into another decade, I mean, it's really a big thing. And I know that you have a lot of plans with your PhD and your current political aspirations. So what are your plans for the next few years?
Definitely finishing my PhD is one of it. And more political stuff. I think mainstream politics would be something that I would love to be in the future. So wherever possible, campaigning and being able to create whatever change I can in my community. That would be something. Very interested in global health and public health. Very passionate about it. Anything related to that area, anything that can create positive change in the community would be something I would be doing.
Great, and I certainly look forward to hearing and seeing the amazing things that you will do. And you're definitely an inspiration for Scottish people, for women of color, and everyone. And I just wish you all the best, honestly. And I know you do great things, or you are doing great things.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. This brings me to the section of the podcast with the quick fire questions.
Right.
Don't worry, I'm just going to ask you questions and you just kind of tell me what comes to your mind.
Okay.
2 principles that you live by.
Be true to yourself. I'm not sure if you know what imposter syndrome is, but be confident about your achievements and accomplishments. If you know your accomplishments and your credentials and your achievements, if you're confident about it, you can step forward and you can say anything you want. So those are important to me.
That's great. Using my voice is important because
I'd like to be heard.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deena. It's really been a great pleasure and honor speaking to you. And
thank you so much.
Can you let the audience, can you let our listeners know how we can connect with you? Because I'm sure many young people would like to keep up with you and I mean within the public health and the political and wider sphere.
Yeah, definitely. You can follow me on my social media, my Instagram, Deena_Tissera, my Twitter, Deena Tissera, and my Facebook, Deena Tissera as well. Do follow me so I can keep you up to date on all the things that's happening, whether there are issues that I'm directly dealing with or whether there are issues that's currently happening anywhere as well. For me, I think social media is such a good platform to spread awareness across everyone. Every community. So please do follow me, and I hope you follow this Spotify channel too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deena. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great conversation with Deena. Remember, your vote is power. I would really like to hear from you. Thank you so much for the awesome feedback that we have got so far. We are lining up guests for 2020. Yes, 2020. The year is coming to a close really quickly, and we definitely still have a few more guests for you before the year ends. So please feel free to connect with us through our socials on Instagram at creativesinfocus, on Twitter at creativesinfocus. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. I'm sure there will be quite a lot to talk about, and let us know what topics you would like us to cover next year as well. We have some interesting projects outside of the Creatives in Focus podcast. And we have some really interesting projects coming up. But we would like to know what you would like to hear and what guests you would like us to bring on the show. Please connect with us. Until next time, influence change and create for impact.